So today we continue our journey with 3 simple rules. You know, Jesus had the gift of KISS, keeping it short and simple. I know you've heard that in a different way, but he really did. He was able to put things together in short little metaphors or short little stories that people could take away, and then it would impact their lives on an ongoing basis. Well, we, of course, as people, humanity, had to make it more complicated, and so now they all exist in a book about this big, and we seldom pick it up. I know a lot of us seldom pick it up because it just is very complicated. But I have to tell you, Jesus was not that complicated. According to Jesus, the rules for life are simple. He said, as we noted last week, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. When asked what was important, Jesus said that was important. Now, it is also recognized that those are just ways of being, but he also said it was good to put it into action, and that was captured in 3 John, where it says, whoever does good is from God. God anointed Jesus with the Holy Spirit with the power for doing good. And then, but I say to you that listen, this is actually Paul, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. Well, Paul and Jesus, I guess, and Luke. Last week we did Paul, this week we did Jesus. It's pretty simple. Do good. Don't hurt one another, and love God. So today we continue down our journey with these 3 simple rules, actually started by John Wesley, his general rules: do no harm, do good, stay in love with God. Last week, do no harm. This week, exploring doing good. And being a man of order, of course, just as last week we had 16 points, Wesley has points around what it means to do good as well. Do good. By doing good, by being in every kind merciful after their power as they have opportunity, doing good of every possible sort and as far as possible to all men. I think he tries to get it all covered there. He says, to their bodies of the ability which God have giveth, by giving food to the hungry, by clothing the naked, by visiting or helping them that are sick or in prison. To their souls, by instructing, reproving, or exhorting all those who have intercourse with, trampling underfoot that enthusiastic doctrine that we are not to do good unless our hearts be free to it. So he says, preach against this, live against this. Then he goes on and says, first, of course, that we're supposed to start it all at home in our own households with the people of faith that we live with and then move it out. And he goes on and on and on. Different steps on how it is that you could go about doing good. I only say that because perhaps you too could have some sub-points to how it is that you could best do good on your own. Friends, I think what I take from it all is this. People are good. People are good by nature. My faith tells me that when we are born, we're about this far away from God. And yes, we've kind of heard some different things about being born into evil, but let's just stay with that little teeny being for a moment. I think that's about as good as it gets right there. That little crying baked potato, that little thing that looks so beautiful, that's close to God. That is goodness. And then what happens is this conditional world gets in the way. The conditions of the world, kind of our desire to take care of ourselves and our own ego and our own lives, gets in the way, and it gets piled on that little being. And all we have to do is get back to that little being, because every one of those little beings that come out of that womb, by very nature, are good. We are, by our very nature, good. Not just Christians, not just people of faith. I believe humanity is good by nature. Here's an example. People are giving. In 2015, which is the last year we have clear statistics for, people gave $373.25 billion away. And people keep giving. In fact, that increased. In fact, it has increased since 2008 when the economy was so bad. People's giving keeps increasing. Individuals, foundations, corporates, bequest. People continue to give. education, human services, and giving to animal organizations, all on the rise. One of the things I do in my spare time, this is so awkward, is I read the obituaries. I'm sure some of you do too. And I don't know if it's because I'm a minister or what, but I read the obituaries. And do you notice in the obituaries now, the Humane Society is really one of those places where people are giving a lot of money to. Now, if church were business, I'd say, I'm not so sure that that's good for business, but we're not in business. I think what Jesus would say is, that's good. That is doing good. That's someone opening their heart. They've been transformed by the love of an animal, and that's someone saying, that's good. Make a difference in the world in whatever way you can, however you can. Now, for me, I believe that people give out of goodness, not necessarily out of obligation, but in their belief that things can be better for not just me. Now, the church is partially responsible for this giving thing kind of getting out of our hands. Before World War II and during World War II and right after World War II, the community was very responsible for one another. My parents grew up in Chicago, not far from a railway line, and what they used to talk about was a basket of food that was put outside in the post-Depression and then during the war for people who would come by who would be riding on those trains who might need something to eat. You didn't know. You didn't have a police record on them. You didn't know what kind of lives they were living. You just put the food out there. In fact, sometimes you didn't even know who ate the food. But the food was taken, and there was almost even a society that created the expectation that I will feed you if you are in need. Now, I believe it was totally and completely with good intentions that the church and the government came together and said, you know what? Let's get a systematic way of taking care of people. And so what we did was we created this social service system, a system to take care of people. But what happened? When we stopped taking baskets and putting them outside, we stopped seeing and experiencing true giving in that way, and it became part of our taxes. So then we said, well, we're making a difference via our taxes. Nobody said, yeah, but who? Who are we caring for? What do they look like? How are we praying for them? How are we taking care of them? We didn't really do that. We created a system to do good. And friends, systems do okay, but people do good. So, in part, it was our desire to do good that kind of put us in a position where we stopped taking care of each other, and it was an awkward and difficult situation. But it doesn't have to be, because we, by our very nature, still want to do good, not just with our taxes, but with our daily lives, with our time, with our treasures, with our talents, which is why we want to encourage each and every one of us to give 100 minutes of our time a month, to give just a little bit and see what that doing good does for you in your life. I am a firm believer that we want to do good. How do I know that? Blood. People give blood. In fact, do you know that people need blood every 2 seconds? Someone is in need of blood. Every 2 seconds. Someone is in need of blood. 6.8 million people, 10% of the population, give blood on a regular basis. Now, giving blood has always been kind of popular, but it really did increase since, do you remember since when? That is absolutely right. I wish I had a toy to give you. Since 9/11, that's right. During 9/11, people wanted to do something. People wanted to make a difference. People wanted to do good, and people started giving blood, which has had an impact on giving blood in the United States. People are giving more blood now. Our reaction for that situation was to do good. From the ashes and the dust of that situation, that horrible, difficult situation, more goodness came than anything. Not only 9/11, but Katrina and Haiti with the earthquake and a variety of different things that happen in the world. Our reaction is to seek to do good, which I do believe that Jesus and Wesley would say, great. But then I think they would encourage us just a step further, just one little step further to say, don't only do good in reaction to or in response to, but find a way to be a proactive or a person who lives in a being of goodness, a person who lives goodness. To do good, you got to be good. Just as the rule with do no harm, do good is a lifestyle. Being goodness is a lifestyle. It's not a reaction. It's a way to live your life as natural as breathing. Not only that, but realizing that this kind of goodness is not based on loss or gain. Sometimes, just sometimes, we have been known to give to something in particular because we have something to gain from it, or our kids have something to gain from it, or there is something to be gained from giving to this particular thing. Being goodness is not based on that kind of system. In fact, being goodness is not based on logic, really. It's based on the heart. It starts with the heart. Goodness does not necessarily live in a logic zone. It lives in a heart zone. Goodness does not insist on its own way, but it rejoices in the truth, in true love. Goodness is a presence and a way of being. It's a higher calling. It's a way of life. It's a way of living that permeates everything we do. I loved Marcy's prayer and how she shared that she knew that today was the doing good day. And it wasn't until she looked at her life to see that, in fact, well, maybe there was some goodness going on. Something tells me if Marcy keeps doing that and all of us keep doing that, we will find we are probably doing pretty good out there. And a wise leader once said, we multiply that which we count. And something tells me if you start looking for the goodness, you'll start participating in even more goodness. Friends, I'm going to say it again. Contrary to popular belief in today's culture, people are by their very nature good. The large majority of us in this world do not believe that evil will get us anywhere. A very, very small percentage of people do not believe in goodness. And if those of us who do believe in good continue to live in good, it will overcome evil. I firmly believe. All of God's children are born into goodness. Doing good can be on the rise. It can and it will, if we are willing to be a society based in goodness. Not only giving of ourselves and living to be good ourselves and doing good, but what if we started working on a world that insisted our children find this being of goodness as real as the air that they breathe, as real as just taking every step? What if they lived in the power of goodness? We tried to create some of that a few weeks ago with the giveaway. We gave the youngest members of our community $100 each, and I look forward to seeing how they're putting it to work. In fact, I've already received some reports and seen some different things of amazing things that are happening. We at the Garden are committed to living in goodness with our children, but guess what? We are not alone. The way that I choose to spend my 100 minutes a month, and it's a little more than 100 minutes a month, is I tutor on Monday mornings for about an hour. I participate in Wayne Township's host, Helping a Student to Succeed, once a week for 1 hour, 2 different students. I've been doing it for about 8 years, and every year I say, I can't drive the hour from where I live now. But I am so filled to overflowing when I leave those situations, I can't stop. I can't stop. This past week, my little guy and I were reading our articles, because it's all based on reading. You only do reading for a half hour. And we were reading Time for Kids, which was a year in pictures. And one of the pictures was of our new president, and this little boy said, now this was last Monday, he said, wow, how long has he been president? And I said, 3 days. And he said, that's all? Anyway, that's not really what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was in that same article, they were showing these armbands from UNICEF. And they're armbands called Kid Power. And what they're trying to do is create a Kid Power cycle. So this is one of those, count your step things or count your activity. What do they call those? Whatever those. Clearly, it's very important to me. Whatever they call those things. And what the kids do is they do activities. And in doing those activities, they earn points. And in earning those points, they go to an app and they choose a community of which they want to connect with. It tends to be a community in need. It tends to be a community in a third world country or a country where there are lots of needs. Then the kids go ahead and they take all those activity points and they're allowed to give to the community in a variety of different ways. They can take those points and they can either give food or medical care or something. And they have some control over giving. Now, talk about an amazing program where kids in their very movement, in their daily walk of life, are doing good and connecting with some other kids halfway across the world who they may perhaps not ever meet, but they can have an impact on their lives. You can buy these things at Target. Honestly, I'm not working for UNICEF or anything, but it is an amazing project. You can get them, they're about $40. And a kid can learn how to make a difference and do good for themselves. I think that is amazing. What if we as adults started doing the same thing? What if our activities guided us to goodness no matter what? Now, I got to be honest. I sometimes am not living in goodness because if things aren't going the way that I think they should, I tend to have judgment of other people. Don't tell anybody. But I tend to think I'm doing good. But in fact, if my good is in fact based on my feelings towards a president or my feelings towards a person who doesn't live their life the way that I think so, or a person who isn't doing it the way I think, I'm not really living into goodness. That's not being goodness. Being goodness is to try to find a way to have goodness permeate whatever situations are happening in our world, and now the church needs to do these kind of things. To permeate our nation, our government, our world with goodness. It is very hard to do. I did it this past week. So what I did this past week is I came off of Keystone at 86th Street, and there's a guy there always with a sign. Okay? So my goodness was in the back seat, and I was in the front seat, and I said, boy, I'm sure that's a manufactured sign. Didn't you hear? They're manufacturing those on Amazon. They're picking up those will work for food signs. Where did that come from? I don't know. That person makes $1,000 a week. I didn't say that, but I've heard that before. Do you know that guy's making about $1,000 a week? He's making $50,000 a year. Okay. So the judgment train starts taking off. But then you sit and remember, I have to stand in front of all those people and talk about doing good this week. And you just seek to be good. And you are mindful at that moment that that person was born as a little baby and has got God's goodness in them. And suddenly, judgment train steps out of town and you're just there, just seeking to share the energy of goodness in the world in some way. You must be intentional, my friends. We live in a world today where we don't talk to each other, we talk at each other. We're posting, we're tweeting. What we need to do is to respond to that at thing with a being of goodness. What we have to do is respond, not with emotion, well, one emotion, love. How do I love when I am so confused? The only way I can is to be changed from the inside out with the love of Jesus. I'm going to invite the band to come up now because we're going to do a virtual communion in close here today. We did communion at the first service. We're going to share in communion now just where we are. Our closing song is "A Change Will Do Me Good." A change will do me good. And the gift of Holy Communion is that Jesus left us this gift, this meal. That not a meal that in it has a magic pill or something that when you actually eat the bread, it's the Spirit that comes with the experience that leads to communion. So today I want you to do me a favor and invite Jesus to your table and say to Jesus during this song, I need a change. Determine what change you need. If you are standing in judgment like your pastor, a change will do you good. If you are standing in a place where you know you are right and everyone else is wrong, you need a change. If you have no self-confidence in yourself and you sit there today overwhelmed by your lack of whatever it may be, being not enough, you need a change and a Jesus to wrap you in his arms and say, you are enough and I love you just the way you are. So we're just going to be still here for a couple minutes. Let's go ahead and start and I'll pray. Well, just like you did it last time. We're going to ask, kind of close our eyes if that's what you're into, and commune with Jesus. Invite him to your table. Yo, Jesus, come and have a seat here. We got to do some talking. I need a change. I need a change. I don't want to be conformed by this world. I want to be transformed by your love right now. Change me. Make me new. Commune with me, fill my heart till overflowing with the power of your love, your goodness, your grace, and your spirit. I got in a fight on the playground this week, or I challenged with this, and I don't want to be that way anymore. The way I want to be is in your presence. I want to be good and do good, because a change will do me good. Fill me with your love and your grace during this song. Make me new so I can leave this place shining with your love and light.